will be able to contribute so much of things. And we have Dr. Rita Kumar, Professor, Amity University, Noida, UP. And she is also a very experienced, about more than 20 years of teaching, counseling, research, training, administration, and quality management. And she is efficient in value-based competitive education and human revolutionist. So has varied mission and philosophy. So let us hear from them one by one. Sir, I would like to invite Dr. Bhuleshwar Prasad Mishraji to start the panel discussion, and you are allowed 5 to 6 minutes, and after 4 panelists, we will have the question answer session. So please, sir, Dr. Bhuleshwar Prasad Mishraji. Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Dr. Sugathan. And it's my pleasure to be part of this panel today discussing the rational emotive therapy in India, or cognitive behavior therapy, what we practice in India, and the Western concept, what they have developed. So the main concern of professionals in India is whether we are applying the same concept what was developed in West, or we have adopted it in Indian way, considering the diversity of Indian culture, belief, faith, and ethnicity of India. So definitely, as far as my experience is concerned in last 30 years, we had to modify as per the culture, as per the society, as per the people, applying the concept as it is, but our way of implementation is different. There is no standard one way in India where the people are applying this cognitive behavior therapy or rational emotive therapy or psychotherapy in similar way. So definitely, gradually, people are coming across, discussing together on a platform and, finding out a standardized way, Indianized way to handle our people. Our people who all are sufferers, there are so many reasons, causes, and aspects of their problems. So whenever we deal these cases and apply this cognitive behavior therapy or rational emotive therapy, the main thing is that our understanding of emotional expression of different cultures, because here basically we deal with emotion and we apply different ways, techniques of psychological means to modify that maladaptive emotional expressions, emotional feelings, and behavior. So that way, since it varies culture to culture, it varies, geographical area to area, then definitely we have to adopt it as per the requirement of our people whom we are delivering our services. So in this regard, since long the things are gradually growing in India and people have started modifying it and applying in Indian culture, Indian people, and successfully handling and, getting results out of this therapeutic approach. Definitely cognitive behavior therapy, rational emotive therapy are now in current very focused therapies and well accepted and well responding techniques all over the world. And in India also, we are succeeding handling our patients. We are able to help our patients and help them to adopt new skills, new coping strategies, new adaptive skills to apply, to get rid of their problem. So the main discussion here, I would like to throw a question that shall we have a standardized way of applying cognitive behavior therapy in India, or it should be a standardized area-wise or culture-wise, like north, south, east, west, their cultural belief and cultural faith and lifestyle is bit varying. So not similar. So that way, this will be a good question to address and discuss. So in my way, working in Punjab in last 30 years, definitely we have come across a standardized way, understanding the Punjabi culture and, our examples, our explanations, our, handling of cases are a bit different than what we practice in when we were in CIP Ranchi or going somewhere else in other part of India. So let us focus on this cultural diversity in India, cultural faith and cultural ethnicity in India, and accordingly we have to adopt cognitive behavior therapy and apply the concept of rational emotive therapy to our people. So I put forth this, my opinion, my explanation to this therapy. Let the panelists give their views on this. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So now we will have Dr. Krishnanji, Founder Director, Wellbeing Group, Chennai, Counselor and Psychotherapist. Please, sir.
Namaste, good evening one and all. I have different perspective on this therapies being administered in India and specifically though I am based in Chennai, so how this is not just administering cognitive therapies, but also it's being how it is taught, or rather whether it is taught in colleges and for the students. I believe these cognitive therapies, CBT and REBT, are so essential therapies, and one has to. This is the very, very basic, important two tools one has to learn. So, as far as I understand, in the institutions, it is not. It is just in a way of workshop. It is happening, and most of the time it is only theoretical. It is. I mean, I have been gathering information with my peers, practitioners as well as the academicians. It is only like like this workshop what we are having today, and similarly we get CBT. Only those people who have learned this or get exposed to these two therapies, they are putting into practice. But the knowledge is whether the knowledge is shared. It is according to me, it's a big question. Because it is in many colleges and the college students, attending any workshop is a luxury for them. Even if it is 500 rupees or 1000 rupees for the students, it is really very tough. The colleges are charging 45,000 rupees, 50,000 rupees per semester or per year, whatever. But one practice session, if you take undergrad, they don't have any therapists. So they will be having all the instruments, making the test, attention span, and these kind of tests are happening. Similarly, they use the other tools like HAD and all during the master's programs. There are people who are into counseling psychology. They are exposed to this therapy is only from the theoretical point of view. And if they are going for internship, they are they don't have hands-on experience on any of these cognitive therapies. I think it has to be either the college management sponsor the teachers, the professors, to attend some effective programs. Even if they have to go to, get into Ellis Institute or Beck Institute and get this thing done, and they have to have this practical session. We should have the therapeutic sessions in the classrooms. we don't, except the counseling psychology department, even there it is not administered. That is what I was told. I think this part has to be taken into consideration, and all the academicians are there. It will be great if they take this as an opportunity to teach the students these two therapies, which they can, when they come out of the college, they can be equipped with skills to counsel the.
Okay, Dr. Krishnan, what you felt was the training which is imparted is not so application based.
Yes. You have to unmute, Veena.
Somebody muted me from that side. So, very well said, sir. And the way you wanted to put was the training, which is not so practically application based. And so students just have the theoretical knowledge about it. And more of these practical demo therapy classes should be taken into college level, where training and sharing of experience and how we conduct these therapies should be reached out to the students so that they are more prepared. Thank you. Dr. Sugadan.
So now we have Dr. Rohith Pisharody, clinical psychologist, psychotherapist, and a qualified occupational therapist. Please, sir.
Yeah. So, first of all, I would like to...
Veena, could you mute? Your dog is barking.
Yeah. Okay, so I feel so much privileged to be part of so many experienced and my seniors in this field, and thank you so much to make me part of this. And I think the particular kind of topic that is put towards me is basically that REBT has started from a Western kind of culture. And we Indians, so for example, have a different kind of a culture, and whether we need some kind of modifications in REBT. So I think the first, what Dr. Bulishwar sir has already mentioned, that we need to apply the REBT in its essence, what already Dr. Ellis has already trained us in it, but at the same time, certain modifications, or I would say customizations, according to the need of the client has to be done. So it is a very, very interesting kind of a observation that comes as a clinician our way, is that when we try to apply certain very fundamental assumptions during the therapy, some of the clients would automatically assume that it is going to have some impact on their basic cultural beliefs, or basic religious beliefs, or basic spiritual beliefs. I think that is the time when that even REBT itself helps, because I think where I differ a bit with the panelist as till now is that the basic fundamental assumptions of REBT are such that if when we ask the client to practice it on a regular basis during the therapy, the basic assumption that they are going to change, we are going to convince them to change, or we are going to play with their beliefs which lies at their cultural or at the spiritual or religious levels. I think that is the first assumption that go by, and it feels like they are not that much important. I mean, my views that there has been a point when there was, say for example, Arabic mathematics. So this is something that Western REBT is going to be just REBT in some point in time, with the continuous customization with different cultures. And the second thing is that when we say that there's a lot of difference between the cultures when it comes to application of REBT, I think we also need to understand there are a lot of similarities among these cultures which REBT where REBT can be very useful. We have all sort of individual differences among people especially my practice arena would give me, this kind of a thing where we would customize it, and we were already doing that. I mean, look at REBT and the CT by Erin Beck, and what we do is, the moment you try to shift a bit from REBT to CT, you just have to be more structured. And when you have to shift from CT to REBT, you have to be more philosophical, and you have to present it as a way of life. The one more thing that I like to add here is that that when we talk about culture, I think we can talk about Western versus Eastern in terms of how emotions are processed, and how there are different cultural significance of emotions. But when it comes to what Albert Ellis believed is that emotion is kind of a universal construct. So I think this is something we need to address it in this way, and we also as a culture is evolving, so we need to take this point into consideration as well. So I think this is what I would like to say. Whether REBT needs some kind of kind of a deroute from what it is going away, I think as a clinician, I would not say that we need a complete modification, but I think what other panelists would agree is that we need definitely customization need to be done as per the sometimes not only at the cultural level but also at the individual level. We need to make certain customization. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ragbil Ali ji.
Yes.
And now I call upon Dr. Rita Kumar, Professor, Amity University, Noida. She is having a experience of more than 20 years. So please, ma'am.
Namaskar. Good evening, everyone. I'm really feeling honored to be the part of this panel discussion. And I would like to begin with the quote of Buddha, what we think, we become. And this is a very correct thought I feel when we apply it in our life, that what we think, we become. And thoughts are the basic elements of our being. Means it is a block, elemental block of our being, and every thought is attached with one emotion, because every thought has its emotion attached with it. So when we are talking about CBT and REBT, I feel that REBT is more comprehensive practice, and I believe in, I agree with Albert Ellis when we say that emotions are universal. Many researches have been conducted onto the cross-cultural manner in different cultures, and it has been found that emotions are same. Whether we study about the Daniel Goleman, we study about the discussion of Daniel Goleman with His Holiness Dalai Lama about the destructive emotion, West meets East, that is, when they both discuss it, then emotions remain same. Yes, its expression varies culture to culture, but the feeling attached with that emotion remains same. Either it is constructive or it is destructive. Then as I understand is the basic purpose of REBT is to shift the destructive emotion to the constructive emotions. Life will remain same, environment will remain same. Only the purpose is to change the perspective of the client, of the person in front of us, to perceive the world. That is REBT. And I really feel thankful to Albert Ellis to develop this scientific practice, though emotional, and this REBT is deep rooted and ingrained in Indian culture. We can say whenever I read some scripture, whatever the scripture I read, I found everywhere, even if you read Bhagavad Gita, if you read Yoga Vasishtha or any other scripture, we find that everywhere the teacher is teaching the taught about the emotional regulation only. Everywhere, emotional regulation is an important aspect. But here, I would like to give a new dimension, because now the world is changing. Now we have shifted from face-to-face interactions to virtual interaction. Now virtual life is becoming more important. Then the virtual emotions are feeling an expression of emotion is also being shifting. How we are nurturing the emotion, that is very important. And how, being a psychologist, we are making our clients, students, and the people around us to have the emotional reaction to this new situation is very important for us. So that is why, instead of thinking about the East and West are different, I feel human is human everywhere, wherever they live. The same mindset they have, they have same feelings. But yes, obviously we learn to react in our culture. But this virtual world has given us a very true, a new reality, which we have to learn about. I think when we will be going and moving on in this workshop, so this question must be addressed, that how the clients, when we are doing therapy online in the virtual mode, now we are giving therapy online. When online therapies we are giving, then obviously the client's expression and reactions are very different. Then we need to learn, we need to modify these therapies as per this challenge, which is standing in front of us, right in front of us. We cannot say which is coming. It is standing tall right in front of us. Because it is, we cannot say how long we will be continuing on online therapeutic sessions with our clients. And because, yes, this online system has made our world open wide. We can connect to the people anywhere on this globe for the counseling, and it is happening that we are being connected. So this all has given a very new perspective. So instead of, now the psychology has to take a shape in a very positive way. When we study about the Western psychology even is accepting all the Eastern perspectives. Now the amalgamation has already happened. We need not to make it. It has already happened. Only we need to give it a proper shape and develop. This is my deliberation. Thank you so much, all of you, for giving me the opportunity to speak here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am. All the panelists restricted themselves to the time. They took only less time. So now we will go for the question answer session. So I am handing over to the moderator, my dear friend Veena Krishnan. Okay. Please take over.
Sure. Before everything, I would like to go back to Krishnanji, because he was talking about a very relevant point of training in the classrooms of practical lessons. Would you like to say something more? Krishnanji is here.
Yeah, see, that is what, even in undergrad and post-graduation courses, see, there should be a weekly therapeutic session. You can have a group therapy where, this is practiced, and you can have, weekly once or once in 2 weeks. The therapeutic sessions should be as a group therapy if they implement it. People, unless and until you experience a therapy, we will not be in a position to understand it. You have to apply it on yourself so that you become healed healer, so that you will be able to help the seekers. So that is my additional point I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Oh, okay. If I talk about how the treatment of mental illness came about being from the views which were so ancient, and still date in India, it is quite valid that supernatural elements and powers get into us to make us behave in a very abnormal manner. And this almost always puts our problem of mental health to the external sources, that there is something inside us, where not something inside us, means something from outside goes into us, and that makes us behave abnormally, feel abnormally, think abnormally. And much later that the science developed and the categorization of psychopathology happened, and then Freud took over with his psychoanalysis, and then Albert Ellis and from behaviorism came about with the CBT. So in India, we are still stuck at that level. So we do not take the internal control and take to the rational view. Does any one of you want to talk on that? What is your experience in this field?
As I understood, your question is that the people are thinking about that some external sources are there, and you can say some external energies are affecting the person. That's why the mental illness is happening. So this is, I think, it's a history since the human has evolved, and since the psychology has evolved. People have this faith. Exorcism was there and is still here, but the science is very different than the exorcism, because this saying this that the soul has captured or some external energy has captured the person, because I had this kind of case. This lady was having but what I diagnosed was hysteria.
Correct.
And I was treating that lady, but because in-laws were behaving in such an odd manner with her, and that's why, because of this, she developed this problem, and his emotions were not being expressed and released due to the environmental factors. But this family was believing that कि कोई देवी आती है उस पे, and they were going to the exorcists and all saints and jhad phook wala they were going on. But this lady could not be cured because of this factor. And I feel it is really those people who had complete belief in it. It's not easy to convince them that it is not this kind of problem. It is psychological problem, because they believe because of lack of education. Core problem here is the lack of education, lack of scientific knowledge. So for this purpose, this is required to, we psychologists have to take the responsibility and conduct the workshops and awareness camps for those people, those who are having this kind of belief still. But yes, it cannot be done in a day or two. It's a long process.
Correct. There's somebody raising the hand there. Can we check who is wanting to say something?
I want to come in,
Yes.
ma'am, if you please permit me.
Sure.
One point is that's a question raised for training process. Definitely here in India, you have to maintain the privacy of the patient, of your client. So you cannot take a team to discuss a therapeutic approach with your client. Number one, giving in vivo practice. We at our place, I have this opportunity that I always keep one MPhil student with me while doing therapy, and then in between session is hand over to the student, that the student will conduct the session and I will be the observer. In another session, I am conducting the session, the student is the observer, and then weekly case is discussed in the group classroom, and details, evaluations, recording, everything is discussed. So similarly, the most of the institutions where this training is imparting in clinical psychology, specifically MPhil clinical psychology training, RCI has regulated so many things in line that people are doing that. But certain conditions, in all cases, you cannot give it yet. Definitely, we have opportunity to have this course in a medical college. So our students are posted in pediatric department, attending their rounds and then taking cases for therapy. And then we visit to the wards and demonstrate. Similarly, cardiology, oncology, gastroenterology, every department we visit with the patient, with the student, and demonstrate them, and then give them free hand to apply this and keep on observing. So that things are going on in training process. Not necessarily in all centers the same pattern is practiced, but definitely since a regulatory authority is there, RCI, now they have started looking on this training quality process. And accordingly, they check all those things. There is some problem, I think, in screens here. So one point. Second point, regarding this cultural diversity, and definitely, if you read Swami Vivekananda, 1801, a student wrote him a letter. That is famous small booklet is Letter to Swami Vivekananda. And the student was 10th standard and wrote a letter asking him that he is having these kind of problems and then what he should do. And then Swami Vivekananda, the way he explained it to the student, it was exactly what cognitive behavior therapy says in 1960. He told it in 1801 to one of the students who is having this, feeling of sadness and not able to do his studies properly and not feeling worth of it. So in our ancient culture, these things are right from the, ancient times. It is there. If you take, Ashtavakra Gita, this is a talk between Ashtavakra-ji and Janak-ji, and then Gita, and then other religious, even you see Gurbani, things are explained, how one should lead their life, how they should follow their emotions. So we need not to dependent on the theories given by Albert Ellis or Beck only. We have to consider our own Indianized way of thinking and then adopt, inculcate all this knowledge to help our patient more. So here in Western countries, they are, trained in psychoanalysis or behavior therapist or psychotherapist. But in India, it is not like that. Nobody is individually trained only in behavior therapist or nobody individually trained in psychoanalyst. So as a clinical psychologist, when we approach, we have gone through those theoretical background. We have to consider our culture. And then whenever required, we also apply the concept of Freudian psychoanalysis. Then whenever required, we go for behavior therapy approaches. When required, in between even single client, we keep on changing the process as per the requirement. The school of thought is not followed same way it is followed in Western culture. So that we have to keep in mind. And if we are talking about India, we have to consider the Indianized way of explanation and exploration of the emotions and their handling process.
Right, sir. So it's an interplay of unresolved unconscious conflicts also, and taking up the cognitive restructuring also. Right, sir. Anyone else wants to make a point here? Because
yes,
very good. Yes.
I am interested. When we talk about Indian cultural school of thoughts and all that, school of thoughts, Vipassana is one of the very much scientific, theoretical based kind of technique. But we are not very much aware of Vipassana technique, which is a Buddhist technique, and which is very much correlated with the CBT aspects also, all the constructs given by CBT. In fact, it is such a beautiful technique that when we talk about all the thought processes and all the sensations, what the unconscious mind is taking on its own self, then it gives, it is a very experiential kind of technique. Once the person learns that experiential technique, the person is more aware about oneself and about the thoughts and the deep-rooted emotions related to raga and dvesha. That is again that aversion and attachment, and watching them in equanimity. And that is thoroughly scientific based, but we are not very much aware about this technique, even in psychologists. Even in psychologists, we are not very much aware about this technique. I often emphasize that we all should undergo that, so that is a kind of psychoanalysis for ourselves, so that we are able to deliver more practically.
Right. But many times we have seen patients who are vulnerable and sensitive, unable to handle the training or the experience that is given in Vipassana, and they have a breakdown of major depression also, because their core sensitivity is actually rubbed there.
But ma'am, that is again the level.
So individual differences, no, we can't make sweeping.
Ma'am, that again, that we cannot take that for psychotic cases. That is only
it's not for psychotic cases. It's for very intelligent people who are doing quite well, and they just chose to go into Vipassana because of again the whatever awareness or self-awareness they wanted to explore, but then there are vulnerabilities there
that
which
may be that may be like a different point of views.
Yes. So we have spiritualism.
But I'm saying that even the brief introduction is not not in the awareness of many psychologists in India yet. This is our truly like obviously that, and if you go deep with the constructs, they are many much related with the CBT therapy and all that, no?
I don't know how many of you will agree with me here,
if
but
I can say
very structured settings.
If I can say something here.
Please.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Because as Anjuji said, one of our scholars is working and doing research on Vipassana meditation. And very soon she will be submitting her thesis also, and outcomes are coming very positive. And what Veena ji is saying is also correct. I have seen many people, because living there for 10 days in silence, without speaking any word, not only the psychotics, but the neurotics also, it is not possible. Before going there, person has to attain a certain level. Only then person can be there for 10 days. I agree that it is an ultimate practice, and I have seen that many Western psychologists come and attend Vipassana sessions once in a year. Certainly they attend it.
Yes,
and they do
wonderful discussions we are having here, and
they do this 10 days retreat or more than 10 days retreat many times. So this is not, that's what I'm saying again, not East or West. It is the human psyche, which is to reach to a level to go for Vipassana or any kind of retreat, because it is not a meditation practice only, it is a retreat. And
actually, retreat. On this note, we'll have to start winding up our session today.
Yeah.
Because it's time to wind up now. And wonderful discussions. I'm so happy that everybody came out with such wonderful experiences. And Dr. Sagadan, yes, your word now.
Yeah, Veena-ji, I am supposed to interrupt because of the time.
Yes.
Anyhow, our panelists took 21 minutes. They were allowed 20 minutes. And the discussion went on very well. And now it is time for me to make some comments. When we were doing MPhil, we had a small chapter of Eastern psychology. Actually, we should have learned a lot of Eastern psychology, whereby we will be able to handle our clients with a lot of diversity and belief system and religious values here. So what is my impression is all our therapeutic techniques will vary according to the client who is coming to us with their belief system, their religious background, values and all. And I fully agree with Dr. Bholeshwar Prasad ji and Krishnan ji and Rakib Ali ji and Rita ma'am. And even Anju said about Vipassana, that is coming in our way, and so many pranic techniques, that is breathing techniques. And the belief system is very important. Whenever a client comes to us, we should understand their belief system, whereby that may be against our belief system of the therapist, but we can't deny their belief system. So we have to understand them, and even we can refer the cases to other areas. Okay, so I am very happy we could finish in time. Now I call upon Anjana Shegar to make the vote of thanks. I am very much thankful to all the panelists, Veena Krishnan, and all the participants. Thank you. Thank you, one and all.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir, and thank you all the panelists for wonderful deliberations. So now we have a time to inaugurate our actual program, that is 4 days training program on rational emotive behavior therapy by Debbie Jaffe Ellis herself. She is also present among us. I would like to convey our hello and namaskar from India to Madam Dr. Debbie Jaffe Ellis, if she is here, if she can hear me. Okay.
Hello, so I can hear you.
Thank you. Thank you. Welcome. So our chief guest is also present. So let's start our program, that is actual program, I would like to introduce MAP. Before we start, Mental Action by People. It is a NGO. It is an NGO, registered NGO. We are working with the aims to promote well-being and quality of life of fellow men by proactive intervention in community health. And the Mental Action by People is a growing platform for connecting people, network, and organizations for sharing resources and for building knowledge related to mental health and psychosocial support, both in the emergency setting and in the chronic hardship. We aspire to building and shaping good practice in support of people affected by difficult events or circumstances. MAP also aims to involve in the comprehensive development of community by means of promoting mental health through effective preventive and promotional measures with the active participation of professionals as well as the people interested in the field of mental health. So mental health promotion is a cardinal agenda of MAP. So mental health action by people works in the partnership with national, regional societies, academic institutions, donors, international humanitarians, organizations, and other stakeholders related to the mental health and psychosocial support to promote and enable the mental health and psychosocial well-being of people affected by adversity. So mental health action by people has various projects in the past. That is My Buddy text line, that is a suicide prevention helpline currently going on, and Just Listening. This is again a crisis intervention helpline, Resilient Truth, and we are dominatingly and actively providing psychological first aid trainings and delivering psychological first aid through telephonic as well as the in-person support. So we have recently launched our psychological first aid, the farmer at protest at national border, national capital border, as well as we have also initiated the psychological first aid helpline for the COVID sufferer as well as their family. And right now, more than 200 volunteers are trained free of cost to provide psychological first aid for the COVID sufferer and their families and the farmers at protest. And different volunteers are working at national level in different zonal teams and state level teams. So in the past also we had Jyoti's project, that is the mental well-being of female prisoners, and project for counseling and education of higher school students, and disaster management against floods also. And we have a training program under the MAP Academy for training young budding psychologists in different psychological procedures. So this MAP is not founded by not only other than that Dr. Krishnan Grease, who's the founder, chairman of Mental Action by People. He's the brainchild behind this organization. Dr. Grease is a senior clinical psychologist, psychotherapist, practicing in the field of clinical psychology for the last 35 years. And he's also founder president of DBT Society India, and he remained president of Indian Association of Clinical Psychology and coordinator various national and international level projects, including the National Mental Health Mission in India. So he remains faculty of psychology, clinical psychology in medical college, as well as other academic institute, and advisor on the panel of various national and international body, including CBSE, NCRT, and National Disaster Management, Family Court, and National Mental Health Program also. And he is invited speaker, trainer for international conferences, workshop on psychotherapy. So we are really proud of our founder president to initiate such a platform to join together all of us. So I welcome all of the guests, especially our Debbie Jaffe Ellis from USA especially. I also welcome Dr. Amul Ranjan Singh. He is the former president of IACP. Dr. Buleshwar Prasad Misra sir from Dhyanand Medical College, Ludhiana. And I welcome Dr. Krishan Kumar Soni from PGI Chandigarh also. So now I invite and introduce our chief guest, our inaugural officer of the day, that is Dr. Professor Surinder Gakhar. So Dr. Professor Surinder Gakhar, we are very feeling privileged and honored to have you as our inaugural officer and chief guest for this program. Dr. Surinder Gakhar sir is the Vice Chancellor of India Indira Gandhi University, Mirpur Rewari. He remained Vice Chancellor of many other universities also, including the Sri Sri University, Cuttack, Odisha, founder Vice Chancellor of Chaudhary Bansilal University, Bhiwani. He remained Dean of Faculty of Life Sciences, and he completed several research projects funded by national as well as the international bodies, including ICMR, UGC, and CSIR. And he supervised 20 PhD theses successfully and remain a fellow for DBT, that is, I think, Department of Biotechnology, Government of India, and represented India at various national and international occasions. He remained Director of Distance Education, Director Computer Center during his tenure at MDU Rohtak. He remained Director Public Relations, and he is an advisor foreign student cells. He was coordinating various other things like committee on MDU accreditations and so many other profiles, and he has a dynamic and versatile working profile, not only into education, academics, research, but also into the management and administration also. So I welcome you, sir, on the behalf of MAB, and now I invite you to formally inaugurate this 4-day training by Dr. Debbie Ellis on REBT and say a few inaugural words. Dr. Surinder Gakhar, sir, over to you, sir. Yes, sir, please.
Thank you very much. Am I audible?
Yes, sir, yes.
Thank you. On the dais, Dr. Krishnan Girish, Founder, Chairman, MAP, Dr. Debbie Jaffe Ellis, Resource Person, Mrs. Ritu Chauhan, Professor Amul Ranjan, very senior students, ladies and gentlemen, good evening to everyone. On the very outset, I congratulate Mental Health Action by People MAP for organizing such an important 4-day training program on rational emotive behavioral therapy, REBT, which is the need of the day. I thank MAP and particularly Dr. Ritu Chauhan for giving me an opportunity to be here on this platform to interact with you all. I met Dr. Ritu Chauhan virtually on some digital platform after a gap of, say, for more than 30 years. We were together in zoology department at Kurukshetra University, Kurukshetra in 1980. It was really an exciting moment and pleasant surprise to know a zoologist being turned to psychologist. Actually, I think a zoologist can make a better psychologist because he or she is well familiar with all anatomy and physiology of various human body systems like endocrinology and nervous system, and particularly to understand the molecular biology of all mental health problems. And I am really thankful to friends. The only thing certain is that nothing is certain. The uncertainty principle of Heisenberg is not limited to the world of subatomic particles. It applies equally to empires, institutions, technologies, and particularly diseases. Till recently, we thought that cancer was an emperor of all maladies. And now COVID is the forerunner. But I think mental health problem is another pandemic globally. As nations around the world prepare to restart their economics after so much struggling with the COVID, the World Health Organization has warned that the coronavirus is here to stay and may not even go. and the virus is still mutating. Many countries are facing third wave. The WHO wants countries not to let their guards down and continue to keep the hawk's eye on the spread and the transmission. It seems that we will just have to live with the coronavirus the way we lived with HIV, tuberculosis, and even the other non-communicable diseases. COVID-19 has created a global crisis that the world was not prepared, like lack of known strategies to control pandemic, lockdowns, loss of work, shelters, sudden overflow of patients in the hospitals, educational institutions were closed. Most such disruptions have led to the huge impact on every aspect of human life around the globe. Ladies and gentlemen, some of these aspects include work and education, physical and mental health conditions, family dynamics, and social relationship. Hence, emotional dysregulation at individual, social, and global levels is a major challenge which mental health professionals need to address now. There are many mental health disorders with different presentations. They are generally characterized by the combination of abnormal thoughts, perception, emotions, behavior, relationships, and others. And many mental disorders may even include depression, bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, other psychosis, dementia, developmental disorders, and including autism. Though I am not a man of psychology, but as per WHO, depression is the most common mental disorder and one of the main cause of disability worldwide. Globally, 264 million people are affected by depressions, and women are more affected than men. This is what WHO reported. And another negative automatic thoughts are thoughts that are individually activated in certain situations, which creates low self-esteem, uselessness, and even may think that I may fail in certain tasks. This is a double-edged sword to me, like automatic thought often include, on one hand, overestimation of the risk and underestimation of its own ability. So, in view of this growing situations and afflictions of the common mental disorders, lifestyle-related diseases, psychosocial agony, violence, trauma in the society today, there is an urgent requirement for developing models of mental health intervention, which are transdisciplinary, relevant in both clinical and non-clinical contexts, as well as aimed towards health promotion and intervention. This training on rational emotive behavioral therapy beliefs and negative thought patterns that may lead to emotional and behavioral issues. These are now acknowledged worldwide for their effectiveness and evidence based in a variety of physical and mental illness and conditions. REBT explores the links between thought, emotions, and behavior. It is a directive, time-limited, structured approach used in a variety of health disorders. All those who have joined these training programs on rational emotive behavioral therapy, REBT, to be imparted by Dr. Jaffe, Ellis in collaboration with Mental Health Action People, MAP. I am sure that you will return home better prepared to make an important contribution to psychology for the next generation of psychologists and psychological associates. Dr. Debbie Jaffe Ellis and the co-author of some of the books with her husband, Dr. Albert Ellis, have been the driving force, as I just checked, during the last years of the life of her husband. It is really a great opportunity for the students and professionals in the field of psychology that the Mental Health Action by People, the MAP, is organizing these 4 days intensive training workshop in collaboration with Dr. Debbie. And I'm sure that MAP will go on a long way in providing more such world-class training programs for everyone's benefit. I am aware that MAP has been doing a wonderful job even in spreading awareness about mental health by various projects, along with holding academic programs and training programs for the benefit of the society. I hope that this training will be highly fruitful, live life, and enjoy the learning. I wish you all good health and great success for the training. Jai Hind, Jai Bharat. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, sir, for wonderful and motivating words. So now is the time to invite the founder chairperson of MAP, that is Dr. Krishnan Girish sir, and patron of this 4-day workshops. Kindly say few motivate words so we can start the actual proceedings after that. Dr. Krishnan Girish, the founder chairman, Mental Action by People, sir.
So, good evening, friends. First of all, I request all of us to observe 1 second silence to pay homage to the departed soul of Albert Bandura. We know that we lost that great person today. Just to 1 second silence. Okay. So, great evening, one and all. First of all, Chief Guest and Inaugural Officer, the Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor S.K. Docker, a pragmatic academician and scholar with intellectual Catholicity, the legend in psychotherapy, and protagonist of rational emotive behavior therapy, the Chief Resource Person, Dr. Debbie Jaffe Ellis, Professor Amulranjan Singh, the icon of Indian clinical psychology, invited guests, chairpersons, analysts, the committed leaders of MAP family, the enthusiastic learners, and dear friends. It's a great privilege to be chair of this evening in an international online workshop on RABT. It's being inaugurated. MAP is committed to serve the community with the aim of mental health for all. In this context, we have established network in all states of India to address the distress due to COVID. Project CALM expansion is COVID assistance line by MAP is an initiative in this regard. There exists a huge gap between the demand and supply of services in mental health, especially non-pharmacological interventions. The divide between the metros and rural India is really alarming. Hence, we commenced MAP Academy to optimize human resource development in mental health and enhance mental health literacy in this unique planet. We are committed to put across academic programs with evidence-based and culturally appropriate. As part of our series of programs like academic events like MAP Talk and Meet the Master program, this international online workshop is organized. Let me conclude here because I don't want to take much of the time. Now let us move with the rest of the program. Thank you. I think now I call upon Dr. Amulranjan Singh for felicitation. Over to Professor Amulranjan.
Dr. Amulranjan sir, he former president of Indian Association of Clinical Psychologists. Dr. Amulranjan, I request you to facilitate the function.
Thank you very much, Dr. Tilochan Singh. Very good evening to all the galaxies from clinical psychology area. And I on behalf of MAP also extend gratitude to the Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor S.K. Docker, who consented to be chief guest of today's occasion, because this is one of the important beginning by MAP. And of course, this is a brainchild of Dr. K. Girish, who thought of initiating some training or workshop program, especially in the area of CBT as well as rational emotive therapy, and where the chief resource person is none other than Dr. Debbie Jaffe Ellis, who happens to be the spouse of the founder of rational emotive therapy, Albert Ellis. So this is a great beginning, and I'm very happy to see many eminent psychologists, clinical psychologists on the panel, including the chairperson and especially Dr. B.P. Mishra, Bholeshwar Prasad Mishra, Dr. Krishnan from Chennai, Dr. Rakib Ali, and Professor Rita Kumar. So I think that 4 days workshop, 1 day is already concluded today. I hope that this is going to be a great experience for each one of us as mental health professionals, because we are participating and we are going to learn many more things in time to come. And I have seen the list of different panelists even for days to come in another 3 days besides today. So I believe that this program will definitely be a milestone in MAP, and it is the vision of Dr. Ritu Chauhan, who also thought of conducting such a big program where people from whole globe participate and they learn from each other. And today's discussion was very, very fruitful, and this was well conducted by both Dr. Sugathan as well as Dr. Veena Krishnan, who have been very senior clinical psychologists of our country, and they have done full justice, giving complete time to the panelists as well as opportunity to the people who wanted certain clarification. Only one point I want to add from my side at this occasion, that ultimately I always believe that the patients are our best teachers. If we learn to spend time with our patients, many things we will learn and modify also. What all therapies we are expecting to be expert in, automatically the things start evolving in due course of time. And of course, under the aegis of this MAP, we are definitely going to evolve and come out with proper document which will be helpful to each participant, because what all discussion is taking place, I believe that the things will be documented also and will be circulated. So I express my gratitude to the organizers who thought of organizing this wonderful program, and this is very good beginning, and I congratulate all the participants that at least they thought of participating, and I assure on behalf of the organizers that this is going to a very good milestone in our career as a learner, because we are going to participate for another few days, and this will be a great experience, I tell you, because there are very few such workshops where people from different parts of the world participate, and at the same time we all are contemplating what best can we evolve thinking, especially in context to our country. So with this, I conclude my speech, and once again express my gratitude on behalf of the whole organizing committee to all the participants, and especially our chief guests and chief resource persons and panelists, and of course Professor Sugathan as well as Dr. Veena Krishnan, besides our organizing secretary and vice president of MAP, Dr. Ritu Chauhan. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your wonderful words. So before starting our actual REBT session, I would like to call upon Anjana to present the vote of thanks to all guests and dignitary. So after that, we will start our REBT training. Anjana.
Yes, sir. Good evening, friends. Hi, I'm Anjana Shekhar. I'm here to propose the vote of thanks to the dignitaries and the friends. First and foremost, our chief guest and the inaugural officer, Professor S.K. Dhakkar, has been a magnanimous to accept our invitation to inaugurate our international online workshop. Despite of his busy schedule, he accepted and he was in the time and inaugurated this event. In fact, we are so grateful to you, sir, for your gracious presence and great gesture to inaugurating this wonderful event. On behalf of Mental Health Action by People, MAP, and my own behalf, I extend hearty vote of thanks to you, sir. The chair of today's function, Dr. Krishnan Girish, founder chairman of MAP, he is the spirit behind the team and their activities. Though formality compels me to propose vote of thanks, hence me and on my behalf of MAP, I'm extending gratitude to you, sir. Now the star of the day and all this coming 4 days is none other than the internationally acclaimed psychotherapist, REBT trainer, Dr. Debbie Jaffe Ellis. And she's extremely busy and she's internationally active. But we approached her. She accepted our request only because she recognized the vision and mission of people, Mental Health Action by People of MAP, the organization. In fact, we do as she feels she is one among us for make herself available all these 4 days despite of the difference on the time zone between India and US. On behalf of MAP and my own behalf, I extend to you, ma'am, the most happiest thanks. Professor Amol Ranjan Singh was the former director of NIMHANS and former president of Indian Association of Clinical Psychologists, currently professor of clinical psychology in IMPAS. He has been the best friend of MAP as we request his participation and support to come and facilitate this function on behalf of MAP and my own behalf. I extend you a welcome and thank you, sir. He's very busy in his academic activities also. Behalf of many dignitaries, stay within his platform, which include the chairs for the panel discussion and analysts, senior leaders of MAP, including our president, general secretary, vice president, organizing secretary, coordinators of MAP Academy, and all the active other friends and members who all are highly service-minded and interested in mental health. Also, this event is becoming possible only because of this sincere and consistent interest and expressed by the participants. Today, we have worked more than 300 past participants. We are really thankful about all their participation and enthusiasm to join and listen and the humanity forum. On behalf of Mental Health Action by People of MAP, and my own behalf, my sincerely and my genuine vote of thanks to you all. And if I missed any one name, please forgive me. I express my sincere thanks to all and everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Anjana. So thank you all, and thanks from my side. Now is the time to start our session with Dr. Debbie Jaffe Ellis. Before we start, I have an important announcement. So it was a free session, open session, panel discussion, but now only the registered participant will remain in the session with Dr. Debbie. So all the participants who are not registered, they have still chance to get their self-registered to get training under Dr. Jaffe Ellis right now. So in case you want to register, you can just talk on our numbers. Now, no need to exit this session. We will continue. Earlier we have planned to quit and restart, but we will remain here. And all the dignitary guests, chief guests and panelists are cordially invited to attend Dr. Debbie Jaffe Ellis session also. So I request chair of the session, Dr. Girish, and moderator of the session, Dr. Ritu Chauhan, to stay back to start this. And now we are actually starting Dr. Jaffe Ellis session. So all the participation who are not registered will be automatically go outside the this session. So we are sorry for that, because only the registered participant will remain here now. So now over to Dr. Ritu Chauhan ma'am. So kindly invite the chairperson of the session to start this session and introduce and welcome our speaker of the day and moderate the session. Now stage is your ma'am, Ritu ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Lochan, and welcome to all of you. First of all, I would like to invite our chair, Dr. Krishna Girish. It's his ideas and brainchild that is pushing the MAP ahead each and every day, and we are attaining new heights in spite of all the challenges, I'll say. So I'm very happy to and very privileged to invite him to chair this session. Now, I would like to give a brief introduction about Dr. Debbie Jaffe Ellis. Welcome, a warm welcome, hearty welcome to you. And I can't see Debbie. Hello, Dr. Debbie. I can't see you. Hello. Hello, are you there?
I don't think she's there.
I think she must have logged out. So she will log in and then, yes.
Okay. Yeah, she's rejoining. She just texted.
Yes. So we wait for 2 minutes.
Yeah, actually, so we have instructed her to quit and rejoin. That's why she did. Yeah, earlier we are supposed to end the session, but time already exceeded, so we could not end the session to restart. So we continued the panel discussion only and merge the session.
Has she rejoined?
Yeah, so no, we are waiting. Yes, she's joining. She just texted ki she's rejoining. Yes, because we took extra 10 minutes in inauguration, so we thought of not ending the session and rejoining. So our host team kindly filter the participants, and in case you find any person who is not registered as per our records, so kindly. So people are texting. So of course we take care of.
Yeah. So there is a question that about the session timing.
It involves so much inauguration.
Yes. So today was the inaugural session. That is why it got delayed. But from tomorrow onwards, it is going to be 7:30 itself.
Yes.
Dr. Chauhan, Dr. Debbie has joined.
Okay, that's great. Hello, Dr. Debbie. A warm welcome to you.
Good evening. Hello.
A warm welcome, and really so great to see you. And I would like to say a few words about Dr. Debbie Jaffe Ellis, although this short introduction is not enough to tell about what all she has achieved. In fact, her great husband, Dr. Albert Ellis, was the one who, put the whole responsibility of carrying forward the torch of rational emotive behavior therapy in the future on her shoulders, and how greatly she is continuing this excellent work by hosting physically as well as online training sessions all across the world. So hats off to you, Dr. Debbie. Dr. Debbie Jaffe Ellis was born and raised in Melbourne, Australia. New York has been her home base for the past 2 decades. She's a licensed psychologist, licensed mental health counselor from New York, presenter, writer, and adjunct professor at Columbia University in New York City, where she teaches rational emotive behavior therapy and comparative psychotherapies. For years, she worked with her husband, the brilliant and renowned pioneer of modern cognitive therapy, Dr. Albert Ellis, giving public presentations and professional trainings. Will you please? Yes, thank you. I request all of you to please mute. Like I was telling, Dr. Albert Ellis was giving public presentations and professional trainings, and his approach to rational emotive behavior therapy, as well as collaborating with him on writing and research projects until he expired in 2007. Before his passing, he stated and wrote that he entrusted her to continue his work. She is recognized as a world-renowned expert on REBT and regularly presents throughout the USA and in other countries around the world to students, academics, practitioners in the helping professionals and the members of the general public. She wrote the second edition of the book, Rational Emotive Behavior Therapy, which was published in 2019, that she co-wrote with her husband in its first edition. She is also featured in a DVD produced by the American Psychological Association demonstrating and discussing the REBT approach. She has written chapters for various textbooks, articles, and has reviewed publications for APA's Psychiatric Journal. In 2004, she was named Legend in Counseling at the American Counseling Association annual conference and has received various other awards and acknowledgements for her work. She joyfully and passionately continues her mission of informing as many people as possible throughout her presentations, teachings, writings, and the way she tries to walk her talk, that each one of us has the power to create our emotional destinies despite and including challenging circumstances, and through teaching the how-tos of doing so. Again, a warm welcome to Dr. Debbie, and I'm sure you all will find this workshop to be very fulfilling and nurturing and learning experience. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Ritu Chauhan. It's such a pleasure to be here. I'd like to start off and I'll translate if you don't understand what I'm saying, but from my heart, I say, Bade Saman or Pyar ke sat main ab sabhe ke sat rahe ka kushor abhari hun.
Great, wow. So wonderful to hear you speak in Hindi. Great.
It's a beautiful language, and I wish I could say more. But anyway, in all sincerity, thank you for welcoming me. Again, I want to thank Ritu. I want to thank also Dr. Krishnan Girish, Dr. Taloshan Singh, the admin guru, as well as of many other things, of course. Dr. Amul Ranjan, Professor Surendra Gakar, Anjana, for your lovely words. Forgive me if I've forgotten anyone who would have been appropriate for me to mention specifically. And of course, welcome to every one of you. Namaste and namaskar. And for now, that's my Hindi and Sanskrit for now. As our eminent main speaker or introducer, the professor said, this COVID virus has had such a great impact. But it's not the only thing that people are passing away from these days. Before this massive onslaught of this, isn't it interesting how a tiny, tiny molecular creature can have such global impact? But what's even more incredible is that something that can't even be measured has more impact. And what am I talking about? It's the power of the mind. It's the choice that we have. As long as we're alive and cognitively able and not impaired, the choice that we have when we know we have the choice. And those of you who are here, if not by now, hopefully after our time together, will have that conviction that no, it's not my circumstances that are creating my emotional experience, but the attitude that I choose, the thoughts I think, that create my emotions when good and bad and brutal things happen. And I'm not
I think we have some problem. Hello? I think Dr. Debbie lost connection.
Yes. Okay. Let me check with her.
It looks like I'm back. All of a sudden, I was in the waiting room.
I'm so sorry, I don't know.
That's okay, but now I'm back. You know,
Okay.
and I love real-time life. And so I hope you can see I am authentically as relaxed and joyful as I was to be with you before I was dismissed and sent to the waiting room. And why is that? Because I refuse to worry. I refuse to worry. There is or was no reason to worry. And fortunately, I've created the habit of not being concerned unless I have solid evidence to be concerned. But I ask you to be honest with yourself. You don't have to speak up, but to reflect on this. If you were speaking to hundreds of people and all of a sudden you're in the waiting room, how many of you, and again, don't answer, this is for your self-reflection, would remain calm? My hunch is a good many of you. And how many of you might feel either mildly concerned, very concerned, anxious, worried, or angry? And what I'd like to propose for you to think about, if you admit to yourself that it might not be that sort of calm attitude, that it's not the fact that you were sent to the waiting room like I just was. No, I don't know that I was sent there, but it happened, right? But it would have been what you were telling yourself. Oh no, what if I can't join them? Hundreds of people there, they expect me to speak. This is terrible, this is awful, catastrophizing, authorizing. Or it might be, this is terrible, how could such a thing happen? Blah, 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 blah. And we create the anger when we think like that. So that was an example, a living example in real time of how, because I, through effort, okay, it's not magic for most of us, it's ongoing effort of getting into the habit of having healthy attitudes when unexpected things happen, or when, as in the case of COVID, very brutal challenges happen. We have the power to choose our emotional destiny. And one of the reasons I adore REBT so much is because it is so holistic. It is not only scientific, evidence-based, psychotherapeutic approach that heralded in the cognitive revolution in psychotherapy. It was not CBT that came first. My incredible, remarkable, genius, visionary husband, Dr. Albert Ellis, was the first one to create a theory, a cognitive theory, to give practitioners a choice of going the route of psychoanalysis, which was Lord of the psychotherapeutic universe when my husband studied psychology, or to start teaching their clients, students, people around them, that we, and only we, each individual has the power to create their emotional destiny according by the way we think. REBT, in my view, is the most holistic of all the cognitive therapeutic approaches that I know of, and in fact, of all the therapeutic approaches outside of the cognitive field. And that's why I love it so much. Now, I certainly am not in any way critical of other approaches and of practitioners who choose psychoanalysis or whatever as their primary or sole modality. Frankly, whatever helps people, great. But I do want to say that for people who choose other modalities, I mean therapists, that REBT can be beautifully integrated. It doesn't need to conflict with other psychotherapeutic approaches. It can be brought in and harmoniously coexist for the good of the people that we work with, live with, teach, or are around. So I'd like to share with you, I know we had a little bit of a late start, but again, REB teaches us to go with the flow. I would like to tell you my intention for the next 4 days, and I'm so delighted that so many people are part of this. And again, congratulations to MAP for creating this and your success in this main first workshop, I believe, training workshop. So the general plan, subject to going with the flow and making changes as appropriate, would be today I will share with you the basics, the history and development, and highlight some of the unique elements of rational emotive behavior therapy. Then tomorrow, or your tomorrow evening, I will go over the tools and techniques. If you haven't already, you will receive some handouts that you can refer to in the days ahead. I also intend to express to you pivotal elements of REBT and talk about REBT as applied to some of the unhealthy negative emotions, which include anxiety, depression, rage, guilt, shame, debilitating emotions. Then the general plan is on day 3, REBT regards to family or relationship issues, REBT or how to use it with resistant clients, and talk about some challenges that we practitioners may face. Some of us, I'm thinking many of us are practitioners, and that a good number of us here may be students with the intention of being practitioners one day. And then finally, the main focus of the final day will be REBT and telehealth. Now, I invite all of you throughout these 4 evenings in India to submit through the question portal or the chat portal questions. I won't be reading them as they come up because I want to focus on speaking, but I think it's Ritu today, but someone will be designated to receive them, and at the end or towards the end to ask me the questions, which will be my pleasure to answer. And also, whilst probably not today, but in coming presentations, perhaps not all 3 ahead, but probably at least 2, it will be my pleasure to give live demonstrations. So that's the general plan. And if, as I said, if let's say today we run out of time before I get to unique elements, don't worry, you won't miss out. All of what has been promised to you will be covered, if not on the particular days named, by the end of this training course. So that is my introduction. So I will begin now with sharing with you the basics, the main elements of rational emotive behavior therapy. I love it if you have your cameras on so that we all feel part of a group together. Of course, please, if you don't have clothes on, first put on your clothes before you're turning on your camera, and do mute as Ritu and Dr. Talochan probably earlier requested.
Yeah, please kindly switch on your camera if possible.
Great.
So it will be more interactive then. Yes,
Wonderful.
many switched off, yes.
Yes. I must tell you, Dr. Debbie is a wonderful person who loves to interact with people, see them, and
And she will be doing live sessions also, live interactions and live therapeutic sessions with you all. So please be on the camera and enjoy the program. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, it's wonderful to see your faces and to get the feedback. In a way, even if I were there live, I wouldn't see so many faces. Now, sometimes some of the faces are bored but that's a great opportunity for me to pay attention, to reflect, okay, can I do something that might wake this person up? Would it be useful for me to be a little more dynamic? It's useful feedback if I assess, look, I'm doing what I feel is appropriate, and if that sends them to sleep, I hope they're having good dreams. But it's an opportunity for me to pay attention and then, again, have a healthy attitude. You know, one of the irrational beliefs, you're going to hear more about this, that cause a lot of suffering for many people is the belief I must be loved and approved of by everyone. Of course, it's very healthy to want that, and it's healthy to enjoy it. But what's unhealthy is to need it, to demand that it must be so, because if we need it and must have it and we don't have it, then it's likely that a person will create either depression, oh, I'm not good enough, it's terrible, it's awful, or anxiety, oh, what can I do to gain their approval, or anger, or one of the other unhealthy emotions. So anyway, what I'm doing when I speak, as I just did, is demonstrating in real time the application of REBT to everyday situations. So please don't think that I'm rambling on in an unscripted sort of way. No, my intention is to give you an example of the application of REBT. And in this case, I love to see your faces. It gives me good feedback, even if the faces are not loving and approving, which feel lovely. It's an opportunity for me to, number one, reflect on the feedback that's offering. Number two, refuse to put myself down and think I'm not good enough. If anything, maybe my delivery is not good enough, but I still have worth. To modify if it's helpful, or to carry on regardless. And as Dr. Tarloshan pointed out, when we see you, it gives all of us a sense of community that we're here together. Okay, so now I am going to go into the basics of REBT. For some of you, this is revision. For some of you, it's new. So for those of you for whom it's a revision, I invite you to enjoy it and be patient, because we will go into more depth as the days go along. And for those of you for whom it's new, enjoy, and I hope you'll drink it in and think about the application to you. All right. So the first main element of REBT, which I've already alluded to, is that it's not an event. It is not our circumstances that create our emotions, but what we tell ourselves about them, what we think about them. Please unmute yourself, because I'm getting some feedback. Thank you very much. Whoever has the microphones on.
Ashmita, please keep your mic on mute.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so then the next main element or reminder of REBT is that when we, think in healthy, rational ways, particularly in times of crisis, or when bad things happen, or when we don't get what we really, really wanted, or something happens that we really didn't want, when we think in healthy, rational ways, then we create healthy emotions. But when we think in unhealthy, irrational ways, we create the unhealthy and debilitating emotions. The next offering of REBT, and this is one of the unique things of REBT. It's spotlight on the whole field of negative emotions. You see, many approaches clearly distinguish between the positive, pleasant, happy emotions and the negative emotions, which can be highly unpleasant. But REBT, last century, thanks to the brilliance of Albert Ellis, this visionary, this genius, this compassionate soul that wanted to help as many humans as possible to suffer less emotional misery, and that's my mission too. So one of the brilliant gifts he gave us is to, within that field of negative emotions, to distinguish the difference between the healthy negative emotions that enrich us, that are part of the tapestry of life, the privilege of being human and being able to experience the variety of emotions, yeah? The difference between those healthy, so-called negative, not because they're bad, but they're not happy, they're not pleasant, but they're healthy. The difference between the healthy and the unhealthy negative emotions, which are debilitating, which literally, not just figuratively, literally rob us of good health and a better life. REBT is the first, and perhaps to this day, the only approach to highlight the difference, which I'll do now. When we think in unhealthy, irrational ways, we create the unhealthy, debilitating negative emotions, which include depression, hopelessness, despondency, anxiety, extreme fear, panic, rage, guilt, and shame. Excuse me while I have some water and I drink to your health and mine. Excuse me. The gift of water, right? When we think in healthy, rational ways, in response to a bad event, a brutal event, a challenge, we create healthy concern instead of debilitating anxiety, panic, and fear. Concern is healthy. It motivates us to do actions that may be proactive and helpful. You know, REBT is not about creating some neutral kind of emotional zone or everything's okay. No, REBT encourages us to live a full life, a healthy, intense life in a sense, where we do experience emotions, but the healthy ones. And so, for example, if we experience concern because, let's say, you're a student and your paper is due in 2 days and you haven't finished, concern can motivate you to spend less time on social media and spend more time writing your paper. Whereas anxiety or panic or fear might lead to either a less effective effort than you would otherwise make, or looking for excuses not to do it, asking for extension, putting it off, procrastinating. You see, so I hope that makes clear how concern is healthy. It's energizing. It's not debilitating. When we think in healthy ways, instead of depression and hopelessness and despondency, we create healthy grief and sadness and disappointment. Sadness and disappointment invite us to reflect on the situation. In some cases, how did I contribute to this? How might I do better next time? Grief is healthy, absolutely healthy. If someone we love has passed away, or it's the end of a chapter in our life that we cherished, it's healthy. Now, some people can mistake debilitating depression as being grief. But REBT teaches us how to discern the difference. If it's depression, it gives us the tools for changing that. If it's a grief, it invites us to have compassion on ourselves, on the situation, and to have unconditional acceptance and embrace that grief is an enriching and healthy emotion in this tapestry of life experience. Then when we think in healthy ways, instead of creating debilitating rage, which I trust you will agree is or can be very destructive and usually does more harm and no good, we create what REBT calls healthy anger. What is that healthy anger? REBT is humanistic to its very core. And healthy anger is connected to the moral compass that REBT asserts that most human beings have if we're tuned into that. Now, I say most human beings. If a person regrettably is somewhat impaired biologically, neurologically, suffers from psychotic illness, then they may not be able to or may not easily be able to be in tune with their moral compass. But for others who are not suffering from any of those debilitating conditions or situations, if we're aware and if we so choose, we can tune into that. It's a preference for do no harm, do more good where possible. That's the inclination. And so according to REBT, healthy anger would be the anger that we create and or experience when we either witness an unhealthy, cruel, brutal situation in our kind of small circumstance or globally, or if we're a recipient of cruel or discriminatory, unfair behavior. And so that healthy anger would be that adrenaline fueled kind of know that comes up within us. It's healthy. And what makes it more healthy is we are not impelled to react. We choose to reflect on, okay, this is the situation. What might be the best thing to do or not do in this circumstance? Now, surely in some situations we may not have time to reflect, but in many we do. And so REBT encourages us to do that, which is enabled by thinking rationally and creating healthy anger rather than debilitating, destructive rage. And finally, REBT reminds us that when we think in healthy, rational ways, instead of creating the debilitating shame and guilt created by thinking in irrational ways, and by the way, which are present very often in a majority of people who attempt suicide. Shame, guilt, and hopelessness generally are predominant emotions in people. And there's an epidemic of suicide at this time, and actually for many years past. So it's, again, so important that each one of us do the best we can, not only from a role of psychotherapist, but as caring, compassionate human beings. If ever we're noticing a person experiencing hopelessness, shame, and guilt, to do the best we can to encourage them, encourage them, encourage them. So anyway, the healthy counterpart of shame and guilt that we create when we think in rational ways is regret. Again, that is born from our moral compass, which encourages us to accept the fact that each one of us is a fallible human being and we're capable of making mistakes. Doesn't make us a mistake. We're capable of failing at things. It doesn't make us failures. Huh? And so when we experience regret, we're likely to learn from any mistakes, and we're likely to minimize the possibilities of repeating them. So healthy regret. So now I move on to the next main offering of REBT, which is teaching us the vital knowledge of the difference between irrational thinking, which causes the suffering emotionally, and healthy rational thinking, which allows us to create and experience healthy negative emotions. And I've noticed, I'm noticing a few messages popping up. No, there's no PowerPoint. You've just got me, but also some handouts that supplement some of the main points that I'm sharing with you over these days. And again, I remind you, you will have the opportunity, and please do, to ask questions, and I will do my best to answer them as the days go on towards the end of each session. And if all the sessions, let's say from today, aren't covered today, I request of the organisers that the questions be then asked in the next day or evening in your case. All right, so now the all-important differences between rational and irrational thinking. You know, to those of you, and I'm guessing most of you who are aware of the wisdom of Patanjali, there are many elements in what Patanjali shared, and also Stoic philosophers, you know, Epictetus. But back to Patanjali. You know, it was one of the blessings in my life to have studied yoga and meditation. I still meditate, and I still try to do hatha yoga regularly. I say try, it means I don't always every day succeed. But so one of the Patanjali sutras is Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha, right? And the translation is something like yoga is the inhibition or cessation of the modifications, meaning I think disturbances of the mind. And REBT says, yes, that's very much an element inherent in REBT. So the first main tendency of irrational thinking that causes so much emotional suffering is the tendency to demand, to should and must and ought, to think in very rigid ways. And my husband, in his brilliance, identified 3 core demands or musts from which countless others develop. And I'm going to share them with you now. And please, as I do so, reflect on whether you, excuse me, have any of these musts in your thinking. And reflect on the people around you, and if you're practitioners, your clients. Excuse me again. To your health. Whether they think in these ways. And so, it's said that one of the causes of, one of the elements of genius, which my husband was, is able to condense into concise, understandable form great bodies of knowledge. So, the first, I'm seeing some of the great questions, which I can't ask now, but I will say a boon.
Yeah, so I request all the participants to keep their questions. Let us not interrupt Dr. Debbie's flow of thoughts. And we will give the questions and the answer session later on. I request you all to please contain your thoughts and contain your questions for the time being. Thank you so much. Sorry.
Yes. No, I love the enthusiasm, and please ask all your questions when the time comes. But that one I just saw, that I love it. Some people mistakenly think that if we think in rational ways, we're too serious, too scientific, too rational, and that it kind of blocks creativity. No, the contrary. Because when we think in rational ways, we're not anxious, we're not afraid, we're not telling ourselves we should do this perfectly. In fact, we create an openness that allows creativity to flourish and not be inhibited. But anyway, ask me that again, or ask more about that when the time comes. I love that question. So I was talking about the elements of irrational thinking, and now I describe to you 3 core irrational beliefs from which countless others flourish. And the first one is I, so ask yourself if this is in you. I must do well and be loved and liked and approved of by everyone. That's a very common one. Huh? The second one is you, and you might refer to another individual, a small group of people, a large group of people, a community, a different religion, a different political group, a different culture, a different gender, a different country. So you can be one or many. And so the second irrational common belief is you must act, must behave the way I think you should. Look for the shoulds and the musts, the demands. You must treat me well, must treat me the way I think you should. You must believe what I think you should, what I know is right. And the third core irrational belief from which countless others sprout is life should be fair and with justice. REBT is not saying if only, it's not saying it wouldn't be wonderful if, but REBT is of the nature of realistic, underline realistic optimism, realistic positivity, and to demand that anything should be a certain way when right now the reality is it's not that way, can practically always lead to an unhealthy, miserable emotion. Yeah? So there are 3 core irrational beliefs that cause immense suffering and debilitation to countless people. who aren't aware that they have a choice in what they tell themselves. We don't know we have a choice. We really are victims of our habitual ways of thinking and behaving. Yeah? Another strong and common irrational belief going around the planet right now, and by the way, before COVID, a need for certainty, not a desire. There's nothing unhealthy in wanting something that's not unhealthy, but to need something that isn't possible to have. And our introductory guest of honor, forgive me, the professor, the chancellor of the university, I forget his name right now, but he introduced the workshop with remarking on how our certainty is not possible. It's pretty close to certain that we will die one day. I say pretty close because who knows what scientific discovery may emerge in our lifetime that allows this finite right now body and mind to continue on. But for now, the only thing that I think is pretty certain is that we may die one day, probably will, this body at least, no? What else is certain? REBT can't think of anything much. And so, thank you. I know, thank you for saying I am very spiritual. I believe REBT is very spiritual. And I want to point out, spiritual does not mean religious. My late husband's definition of spiritual was caring about other people and doing the best we can to help them. That's one definition of it. So I'm just looking down at notes that I made. So I'm talking now about the elements of irrational thinking, yeah? To continue, in addition to what I've just said, when we think in irrational ways, we blow things out of all proportion. We take things too seriously. There's an absence of humor. We tend to catastrophize and awfulize. Those are words that my late husband created. And what that means is convincing ourselves that whatever we're catastrophizing about is the worst that it possibly could be. And the reality is that literally, unless we're moments from death, and unless we're dead, whatever it is could be worse. And where there's life, unless, again, we really are very close to the physical death, or if we're cognitively impaired. But with those exceptions, where there is life, there is still hope. And there are countless testimonies and examples of people who have been in dire situations and have survived and gone on to not only thrive, but to flourish and thereby inspire and help other people by their example. So, when we think in irrational ways, we don't do that. We catastrophize, we awfulize. We have what's called in REBT, low frustration tolerance, LFT, which means I must have what I want when I want it, or I can't stand it. You know, the reality is, if we're alive, we obviously can stand it. We may not like it, but we can stand it. A mantra that I share with many of my students and clients to help them, if that's one of the beliefs that can come up. I can't stand it when is, I can stand what I don't like. I just don't like it. When we think in irrational ways, we think in absolutistic, overgeneralizing, stereotyping ways. REBT is very connected to and embraces the principles of general semantics, which invites us, as REBT does, to think about our thinking. My last statement was, someone asked me to repeat it. When we think in irrational ways, we think in absolutistic ways. We stereotype, we overgeneralize. Yeah? And so REBT embraces the wisdom of general semantics, which invites us to embrace the apparent fact, supported by research, that words and the meaning of words have a very strong impact not only on our thinking, but on our emotions. And as I touched on earlier, REBT reminds us of the interconnection of our thinking, emotions, behavior, and how they affect our physical health and well-being. The Journal of the American Medical Association frequently publishes articles that demonstrate the influence not only of the unhealthy negative emotions on our cardiovascular system, on the manifestation of cancer when it may have been previously latent. It also demonstrates the power of the healthy, positive emotions on our physical health and well-being. There have been many articles on the influence of gratitude on our physical now, health and well-being. So anyway, back to talking about irrational thinking. And a final element of irrational thinking is the tendency to put down ourselves and others and life in general when things don't go the way we demand that they should. So I've just described here, excuse me, I'm sorry, I'm just looking at beautiful Himani Sharma, who's upside down, and maybe it's your phone, or maybe you're doing an unusual form of hatha yoga. Anyway, there you go. Whew, that'll feel better now, right? Anyway, again, I love seeing your faces, and we're all here together in present time and can feel compassion and can smile, and it's great. Okay, so now I'm going to describe the elements of rational thinking, healthy rational thinking that allows us to create those healthy emotions, including healthy negative emotions that we are enriched by experiencing when times are tough, including COVID and non-COVID times, when we don't get what we want, when we get what we don't want, when we've lost someone or a chapter of life, whether it's a relationship or our abilities at certain things are not as good as that they were. The rational thinking allows us to create the healthy negative emotions. When we think in rational ways, it's the opposite to everything I've described so far. When we think in healthy rational ways, we have preferences, we have desires, we have goals. It's healthy to have wants and wishes and goals. But when we prefer and not demand, if we prefer and don't get those things, we're likely to create the healthy negative emotions. So again, it's really important not to have the misconception, well, not to demand means I can't want what I want. No, want it, desire it with a full heart, have wishes. But watch out for needing or musting or shoulding on yourself. When we think in healthy, rational ways, we don't catastrophize or awfulize. We don't think in absolutistic, overgeneralizing, stereotyping ways. We have a healthy perspective. We utilize humor whenever possible, again, to aid us in having a healthy perspective. We have what's called HFT. Can you guess what that means? It stands for high frustration tolerance, where we remind ourselves, I can stand what I don't like. I just don't like it. It's okay not to like it. We better not like injustice and hatred and brutality. We better not like it if we want to be moral human beings, as fallible as we are. Yeah? But not liking something is different from telling ourselves, I can't stand it, which will not help and it will hurt. I think I saw a beautiful pussycat just walk by. I love animals. I just hope that that cat has registered and that it understands English. Animals are welcome to join us. Dr. Talosha, no charge for them. Okay, I love it. I really love it. Okay, continuing with the elements of rational thinking. One of the aspects of REBT that set it apart from other very effective cognitive approaches, including the very well-known CBT, is its emphasis on unconditional acceptance. This is where some of you might think, wow, REBT is very, very spiritual. Yeah. REBT is no-nonsense science imbued with compassion. And there are three forms of unconditional acceptance that REBT emphasizes, that it encourages us with, and you know, when I speak with all my heart, encourages each one of us to create and maintain. And it can take effort, but it's worth it. The first element of unconditional acceptance is unconditional self-acceptance, where we remind ourselves that we, like every other individual, have worth simply because we exist. That our worth is not contingent on how well we do, on how we look, on any possessions. No. Every human being, including those who do evil acts. Some people don't like to hear that, but it's true. Every human has worth simply because he or she, they exist. Unconditional self-acceptance. REBT cautions us to watch out for the idea of let's raise our self-esteem. Self-esteem is not the same as unconditional self-acceptance. Unconditional self-acceptance is what REBT encourages and promotes, not high self-esteem. Why? Because the common definition or understanding of high self-esteem is think of what you're good at and just focus on that. See, the danger in that is that we're all organic, biological creatures. And as time goes on, what we're great at now, we may not be so great at in 5 years or less. And yet if we put our sense of worth on how good we are at that or how we look or whatever, those things change. And when those things change, and if we put our sense of worth on them, then our worth may plummet. And so that is why REBT reminds us to work on accepting ourselves unconditionally. Yes, cherish, enjoy what we have a gift at doing, enjoy our talents. It's not to minimize our enjoyment and mainly our gratitude. Oh, I have this gift. Oh, isn't it great? Some of you men might think that I look so handsome. Or some of you women might enjoy that thanks to the blessings of your genetics, you have beauty and nice hair right now, or whatever it might be. Enjoy. Enjoying is different from saying, I must always look this way. I must always be this good at this behavior or this action or this talent. Huh? I hope I'm making clear what REBT strongly asserts, which is different from many other approaches. Unconditional self-acceptance. I have worth simply because I exist. May I strive to do more good, no harm if humanly possible, but I am a fallible human and that's okay. Unconditional self-acceptance, not let me raise my self-esteem in the way I suggested, right? The next of three elements of unconditional acceptance that REBT emphasizes is the importance of unconditional other acceptance, where we choose, and it's a choice, where we choose to work on unconditionally accepting other people, including and especially those who have acted in bad ways. Easy to say, a lot of people have told me. Yeah, it's easy to say. Not so easy to do. I wholeheartedly agree. And that's one of the blessings and gifts of REBT, which reminds us, number one, of the importance of our doing so, how enriching it is, how good for the heart, soul, brain, and health it is. It also teaches us how to do it, huh? How to do it. One of the most successful ways that people are able to create unconditional other acceptance of people or groups of people who have acted in atrocious ways is to consider the following. And remember, it's a choice. And remember, an expression my husband originally created. When you harbor hatred, anger, and bitterness, you're not hurting the people who did the actions that were so bad. You're hurting yourself. And to hold on to those unhealthy, negative emotions of hatred, rage, and bitterness is like eating poison and waiting for that other perpetrator of evil to die. It's not going to hurt them. It will hurt you. It may shorten your life. It may create illness within you. Okay, so how? This is what has worked for countless people, including me, who have made the choice to stop hating and to develop unconditional other acceptance. If you or if any individual is willing to consider that the perpetrator of the evil acts were once innocent little babies, like every one of us, innocent babies. And if any one of us were born with their genetic makeup, with their biochemical nature, with their tendencies towards certain maladies and or psychoses, if any one of us were born with that, if any one of us were brought up in similar ways as they were, maybe not a very healthy upbringing, maybe learning a lot of destructing lessons of how to survive in this world, and being encouraged to hate others and to hurt others to protect yourself. If any one of us were indoctrinated with such beliefs, if any one of us went through what they may have in school, or were bullied, or may believe they're less than, so to compensate and to, in a sense, feel superior, either believing they should act in these ways, asserting themselves. If any one of us perhaps had joined a group or adopted a philosophy that encouraged bad behavior in order, frankly, to survive, and not knowing there were healthy ways to survive, not knowing an option, then isn't it likely if any one of us were thinking what they were thinking the moment they did their evil act against you or in general, isn't it likely that we might have acted in similar ways? Now, that is not to support or unconditionally accept evil action. No, REBT is humanistic and encourages us as much as we can to help change injustice in whatever way we can, small steps, big steps, join groups that support civil justice and so forth, to do what we can. But let me come back to my original point, unconditional other acceptance. If we are willing to work on making effort to have that for particular individuals, the next step over time can be forgiveness. And again, not only is that for good, a good thing for the individual, but then an individual modeling that can be helpful for a community, can be a contribution to less hate and more acceptance, unconditional other acceptance. Not only nice words, but it's possible to achieve with ongoing application and yet empathy. Yes, empathy. And there are many models of human beings who have achieved this. You may know them in your personal life. People who are persecuted, who made the choice not to hate and to have compassion and forgiveness. One person that comes to mind, and those of you who studied psychology may have heard of Dr. Victor Frankl, who survived concentration camp and chose not to harbor hatred. My late husband and I were treated quite badly by people in our work life, and we chose to accept them unconditionally, not to hate them, to hate the bad behavior and to do what we could to have justice. But we didn't, and I don't hate the individuals. And you know what? It feels much better inside. It feels much better inside. But it's a choice that requires ongoing effort. The final element of unconditional acceptance that REBT encourages is unconditional life acceptance, where we choose not to like that there is injustice in life, but to accept the fact that we can stand that in life right now, the reality is there is injustice. Things are not always fair. Let us do what we can, if we can, to change that and to graciously accept what we can't change. So, just to give a quick rundown on what I hope I've clearly expressed so far. Yes, indeed, the Serenity Prayer is a similar poetic, beautiful invitation to change what we can and accept what we can't and have the wisdom to know the difference. Yes, indeed. So I've introduced the root premise is that we are responsible for our own emotional destiny, that it's not our circumstances, but our thinking that creates our emotions. I hope I have clearly expressed the difference between healthy and unhealthy negative emotions and rational and irrational thinking. The next reminder of REBT is not only to create, but to maintain healthy emotions and thinking requires ongoing effort. It's not sufficient to have a aha moment, an epiphany, and assume it's going to last forever because it feels so good. No, ongoing thinking. And by the way, life will probably help us with that by providing new challenges and surprises and unexpected, undesired events in which we have a choice to practice healthy, rational thinking or succumb perhaps to previous habitual, irrational thoughts. That's why I invited you earlier to consider which of the main unhealthy, irrational premises you or your loved ones or clients might. Sorry, yeah, I noticed the distraction of the messaging. But if it can't be changed, we can stand it. If it can be changed, that would be good. No worries. I'm originally from Australia. It's a very common expression. No worries, mate. Okay, so ongoing effort is required to create and maintain healthy thinking and healthy emotions. And that's why in REBT, and REBT was pretty much the first approach to do so, homework activity is an important part of it. Like in the therapeutic session in REBT, the clients or the patients, some of you who are therapists might call your clients, and some of you might call the people you work with patients. So if I use one word or the other, it's interchangeable. Yeah. So homework is given, homework activities. And I think tomorrow evening is the evening in which I share with you a multitude of homework activities, tools and techniques of REBT. Not this evening, but that's tomorrow evening. I want to end this segment on the main elements of REBT by sharing with you this vital emphasis that REBT makes, some other approaches do too, on the importance of gratitude. Now, certainly in my husband's lifetime, that was an important element of REBT. But since his passing, and as Ritu mentioned, I'm doing my best to continue the torch. I'm not the only one, by the way. Please don't think I have this ego as I am the only one. Of course not. I am one that my late husband mentioned as, I suppose, a visual, well-known figure, but others who studied with him are, of course, doing masterful jobs in their own way, sharing REBT. It's important for me to also say that many of the people who studied with him have chosen, since his passing, to use and present a hybrid of REBT and CBT. I know that the institute bearing his name, and for those of you who don't know, I'm not associated with them, nor was he in his final years. But they present a combination which they call often, I'm told, rational, emotive, and cognitive behavior therapy. So I don't in any way discourage people from following that, studying with them, using that. But that's not my emphasis, and that was not my husband's emphasis. So it's not an either or, it's about people knowing what exists and making a choice. And I continue to teach rational emotive behavior therapy. I do believe actually the excellent CBT and the remarkable body of research has my full respect, as it had my husband's respect. But the point I want to make is REBT has certain elements that CBT and other approaches don't emphasize, and I will continue to emphasize REBT because that's the baby I choose to embrace. So back to gratitude. Of course, my husband enfolded it as an element of REBT, but probably since his passing, I emphasize it more. I've written an article about it. Gratitude is a vital part of creating an enriched life. It enables us to not take things for granted. It enables us to, on a daily basis, be more effective at keeping things in healthy perspective, particularly during times of challenge, particularly during difficult times. To take the time to be grateful for the so-called small things, which actually some people might consider the grandest things, and to practice acts of kindness whenever and wherever possible. All of that strongly encouraged in REBT, and in fact, with every one of my clients, in addition to being a professor at Columbia and doing many presentations, Columbia University in New York City, though I have presented in the country of Columbia, all of my clients I give as their daily ritual homework. It's up to them to use it or not, but I can't think of one who hasn't embraced it and shared with me how much it's benefited them. Daily gratitude, whether written in a journal or simply as you lie in bed in the morning before you get up to reflect on, I'm grateful for being alive, and other things that you're grateful for. Another good time to do it is before you go to sleep and any time in between. With awareness, we have choice. You know, another similarity with the wisdom of Patanjali, I would say that REBT is probably the original contemporary mindfulness Western psychotherapeutic approach. Boy, that was a mouthful. So with that, I have shared the main basic elements of REBT. We have about 23 minutes left, and that's why I mentioned earlier the flexibility. All topics will be covered, but today I mentioned that I would be sharing the history and development and unique elements of REBT. Perhaps I will leave the history and development till tomorrow. I will highlight now the unique elements of REBT, which won't take me very long to do, which will give us more time to focus on, for me to answer your questions. And 2 people are entering the waiting room, but I think the rest of us still exist. Okay, so the unique elements of REBT. The first unique element is the history and development of it, which, as I said, stay tuned, folks. I won't be running quickly through it tonight. I'll go through it tomorrow evening. It's funny, I'm looking at the sunshine saying tonight because I'm with you in India, really quite fully now. I'll go through it tomorrow, but the first unique element that I want to mention here is that elements of its development are not, as far as I know, part of any other development of other theories. To name one aspect, my husband suffered much physical pain and other suffering from infancy onwards, and in his brilliant capacity to construct and create, he found ways from childhood on to suffer less. And those ways were folded into the scientific theory of REBT. I think that's one of the things that gives REBT its human feel, its relatable feel, that so many people who learn it, even non-academics, can relate to. So more about the history and development tomorrow. Another unique element of REBT is that not only is it scientific evidence-based, but its emphasis on the importance of each individual and the benefit of each individual reflecting on their philosophy of life and living. And then to reflect on, is this a healthy philosophy of life? You know, am I too pessimistic? Is this helping me? Is there evidence that it's helping me? So the encouragement to identify one's philosophy of life and then to work on changing it if we identify it's not enriching, it's not helpful, and it might be hurtful. And there were articles, and you could find them online, written and published in the Cognitive Journal. I forget the exact word, but again, I'm confident you will find them online. Published in 2003 and 2005 by Dr. Albert Ellis, Dr. Aaron Beck, the wonderful, who I love, father of CBT, just turned 100, Dr. Aaron Beck. So he was the second co-author, and Dr. Christine Tedeschi, a wonderful woman who's a great teacher, master within the cognitive field. And these articles about similarities and differences between CBT and REBT. And they all agreed that REBT is the most philosophical in the cognitive field. They disagreed on this. Doctors Beck and Tedeschi said that CBT is more scientific. And Dr. Albert Ellis and this Dr. Debbie Jaffe Ellis disagreed. REBT is as evidence-based and scientific. And number one, CBT is based on the principles of REBT. Albert Ellis and Aaron Beck, doctors, communicating. REBT came out in 1955, actually the first article in 1953. Dr. Aaron Beck's article on depression in the late 1960s. This, please don't misunderstand me as sounding like it's a competition or whatever. I'm just telling you chronological facts here. And so now a fact is there's much more research published in CBT. Fabulous, excellent. One of the reasons probably is Dr. Beck is associated with the University of Pennsylvania, and so they had the capacity to do much more research than my late husband's directors of research. We were just a non-for-profit institution, and certainly research was done not only by the Institute but by other people, but in no way compares to the body of CBT evidence. That's a fact. The good news is that all the CBT research published supports the premises of REBT, and that's not surprising for the reason I mentioned before. So in conclusion, the Ellises believe that REBT is as scientific as CBT, does not have as much published research, but has a good amount, particularly from the years my husband was alive. But we all agree REBT has the most philosophical emphasis, most humanistic. Well, I don't want to say most humanistic, that might be misleading, but most overtly so in its emphasis on unconditional acceptance and gratitude. I will mention there are third, fourth waves of cognitive psychotherapy that are now folding in or have folded in some of those humanistic principles that have been in REBT from the start. Another unique thing of REBT, which I mentioned earlier, was how it beautifully educates on the difference between healthy and unhealthy negative emotions, and doesn't just have one field of negative and one field of positive emotions. So that's been really, really helpful. Another unique thing, and we go over this more tomorrow when we'll look at the ABCDE technique of REBT, is the emphasis that REBT places on the importance of disputing our unhealthy, irrational beliefs. You know, many approaches say identify your unhealthy beliefs and replace them with healthy ones. Sure, and of course, REBT wants us to do that. But REBT wants us to do it more thoroughly. And the way to do that is once you've rooted out, exposed the must, the should, the irrational beliefs, to dispute them, to ask questions. Where is the evidence? Where is it written? Can I really not stand it? Is it helping me or hurting me to believe this? To dispute rationally, logically and Socratically. I'll talk more on this tomorrow night. So that by disputing, and the answers are no, 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 we take away the credibility of the irrational beliefs. And when we're no longer believing them, they're not likely, even if they've been our habit for countless years. Once we stop believing them, we're less likely to have them come up. And then we go on to creating and focusing on effective new beliefs. So the precision that REBT encourages us to use when we dispute, not to just replace the unhealthy with the healthy, but to go deeper than that. Then the emphasis, as I mentioned, on gratitude, the emphasis on adopting humor, even in difficult situations. Now, not indiscriminately, of course. There are situations where it would not be appropriate, certainly overtly, to express some humorous view. We may in our own heads, but out of sensitivity, we better zip our mouths, right? So it's not always appropriate to express humor, but it's not inappropriate to have it. Why? Not to mock, no, to keep things in perspective. Yeah, this is pretty bad, but it's not the end of the world. And there's a funny side to this, and to give ourselves permission to see that. Holistic, multimodal, I said it from the start. I'm not here to convince anyone not to use a different modality, but to encourage you to add to it with any elements of REBT that touch your head and touch your heart. You know, even I sometimes use non-classical REBT techniques. I'll be sharing those with you tomorrow. For example, dream work is not a classic REBT technique, and I don't initiate it. But if I have a client or patient who wants to or is telling me I keep having this dream and I wake up very anxious, I surely will work with that. Now, not in a classical Jungian or Freudian sense, no, in a REBT way. So I'll listen and I might ask questions like, and in the dream, what was the emotion? And let's say they will say anxiety. And so I might ask them, so in the dream, what might you have been telling yourself to create the anxiety? You know, so I might look at it in that way, using the dream and the disturbed emotion. Usually a client won't share a dream unless there's some agitation or worse, right? And so I use it for their benefit, incorporating REBT. So that's an example of not being rigid, doing what we can in the interest of the well-being of the people we work with. But I'm biased. I think, for me, REBT has it all, and that includes welcoming other techniques for the interest of the people we want to help. A huge element, you know, REBT, there are a number of myths. One is, or in the past was, it's very much focused on the self. No, it's also and equally focused on helping other people. Adler, Dr. Alfred Adler was an inspiration to my husband in his creation of REBT. And there are elements of Adlerianism in REBT, though not the psychoanalytic ones that are still in Adler's work. But I love individual psychology, and there's a great group of people, the North American Society for Adlerian Psychotherapy, and they do international events. That's why I'm mentioning it. And it's an example to you of not being religiously REBT. But anyway, Adler and REBT embrace the importance of social interest, caring for others. So when we're caring, unconditionally accepting for ourselves, we can be more effective at doing so and modeling that for others, and let us do the best we can in this one life we have to help and inspire others and to cherish this life we have. So we have 10 more minutes, and I hand over whatever questions I don't answer tonight, and it's likely I won't answer them all because of time. I will do my best in the coming 3 evenings. So over to whoever's going to ask me questions.
Dr. Debbie, thank you so much. I was really excited to look forward to your session. And I'm just cutting to the chase. This is with regard to the unconditional other acceptance. So if I have faced abuse from someone, and how do I manage to forgive the other, and what do I do? So that would help me to relate to a child who's also been sexually abused. So how do I manage that? How do I handle that?
First of all, I'm going.
I'm sorry, I lost you, Doctor.
Sorry, you will have to mute yourself.
Thank you. But unmute when you speak. But when you're not muted, there's an echo, at least for me. So the first thing, Swapna and everyone, is to have compassion on ourselves. We don't have to be tough and stoic. A bad thing happened. So to have compassion, reach out for support. Realize, and it's not, now I'm talking about adults because you asked about children and that's a whole other thing. So let me start with us. It's a whole other thing with similarities, of course. Okay, so compassion. To look for any attitudes that we're blaming ourselves. And that the bad thing happened. And if, how can I say, if part of what we did invited a bad situation, to increase our compassion for ourselves as fallible humans who sometimes make bad choices. So the first thing, and it's not first do this, then do that, then do that, it's concurrently, but I'm saying the first thing I'm mentioning that's vital from the get-go is unconditional self-acceptance, compassion, nurturing. Don't be proud, reach out for support. Then secondly, be realistic. In life, very bad things happen. Right now, in your situation, recently, a very bad situation happened to the person that you bring up, who was raped or whatever. That's a part of being a biological human on an earth with other biological humans. Some of us are more disturbed and do worse things. Some of us are less disturbed. The less disturbed of us, let us be grateful that we are less disturbed. So it's a matter of not unconditionally accepting, oh, well, so I'm sexually abused. Not to be flippant about the severity of the evil action, but to take our focus on that person who did an evil action clearly has great disturbances, or they would not have done that act. REBT strongly asserts that if a human being is not disturbed one way or another, and I don't say that sarcastically or facetiously, I talk about that biochemically, which leads to cognitively, emotionally, behaviorally. Person who's not disturbed usually will not choose to behave in those ways. So, Swapna and others, to focus on that when one notices, and it would be understandable that thoughts may come up, it's terrible, it's awful, I hate them, and oh, what can I do? Accept, normalize. Well, because I've not been in this situation before, I'm thinking these things, but let me pause because my goal is to be an evolved human being who's healthy inside, who can experience tranquility, which I won't if I harbor hate and victimhood. And so I can help others. So unconditional self-acceptance, then work. And please, everyone, understand, I'm not saying it's necessarily easy, but it's not necessarily difficult. Is it hard to brush your teeth every day? You don't have to, but if you don't, in time your teeth will suffer. Is it difficult to remind yourself every day about REBT principles? Not really, but if you don't, you'll suffer. So anyway, unconditional self-acceptance, then making effort to separate the bad deed from the worth of the person. And by the way, as time goes on with continued effort, as we work on realizing they're disturbed or they wouldn't have done what they did, in time, forgiveness, authentic forgiveness. You know, it's easy to say, I forgive, and inside you want them to die. We're talking about authenticity here, not looking like you're spiritual, but being. And when we achieve that, it's not even our words or giving therapy or nice speeches or TED Talks. Just something about our energy can help transform others. And I think that's the goal of most of us, if not all of us here together tonight. So I hope I've answered that. Number one, unconditional self. Number two, unconditional other. Number three, by the way, be pragmatic. Call the police. Call a women's shelter. I mean, take practical actions as well. But we're more likely to handle it well if we're creating stability, and not from victimhood, and not from rage, and not from hopelessness. It takes effort. Again, I don't want to make it sound like I'm being flippant. I'm not. I hope you believe me. So, self, working on accepting the others, taking pragmatic action to bring justice and to prevent bad behavior if possible. Again, I hope I've answered your question, Swapna. And if there's a follow-up, particularly about children, please ask me again tomorrow or another night.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
My pleasure.
So any other questions, please? There is one chat. When in an abusive relationship, acceptance, it just disappeared. On what can be changed, focus not on the other, but the option choice I have. Okay, so the thing is that the question seems to be how to unconditionally accept people who constantly humiliate or belittle you. It's a tough job. How to do that?
I've partly already answered it. First of all, see that if they weren't for some reason defensive or how can I put it? If they obviously have an agenda, because if they were in a state of steadiness and stability, it would not be part of their behavior to put the other person down. So the first thing is not to take their words seriously and watch your thinking. And when I say you, I don't necessarily mean you, the person who's being humiliated. What are they telling themselves? This person shouldn't be doing this. I can't stand it. It's awful. It's terrible. Now, of course, it would be better if the other person wasn't doing it. And I would suggest attempting pragmatic conversations. When you talk to me like this, I feel very bad. Please, can you do it? Now, that won't always work. Some people will continue to humiliate, whatever. So, frankly, the reality is we don't have the power to change other people. We could do our best to request, motivate, be a shining example, but no one changes that I know of who doesn't choose to change. All we can do is change ourselves. So if we're in a position where we're constantly witnessing humiliation from another person, and for whatever reason we can't leave that situation, it's a grand opportunity to practice rational thinking, to not take their words seriously, to see, well, that's their opinion, they have the right to be wrong. I refuse to absorb their negativity. I mean, if you had a dog barking outside your open window, would you take it very seriously, or would you close the window to make the noise less? So it's really important, and someone has they're not muted, so I think, thank you very much, yeah. To use it as a wonderful opportunity I have the power not to allow anyone's bad behavior to affect me. I choose to believe in my worth. I choose to be good to myself. I hope, I just heard someone speak. I don't know if that was something else. I hope that answers your question. Maybe we have time for just one more question, because some of you might have had many hours online and you might want a nice decaffeinated chai or a nice good drink and get ready for sleep. So perhaps, what do you think, Ritu and Dr. Taloshan? One more question?
There is one more small question. They're asking that,
Yes,
how is the effectivity of RABT in psychotic disorders?
I will be speaking more about that maybe in a couple of evenings on the third evening or the fourth. But it depends on the psychosis and the severity of it. Some people with psychotic tendencies, when on appropriate medication, can think quite rationally. And in those cases, REBT is marvelously helpful. So it is not helpful for people who have a psychosis such that they are not kind of established in a sense of reality, meaning understanding that actions have consequences, who have delusional thinking, who are not aware that their behavior has an impact on others and so forth. So it has limited or no impact, but I would say none of the therapeutic approaches have impact on people with such severe incapacity to think in rational ways. So when a person with psychosis is able, even for a while, to think in a somewhat rational way, one of the most helpful elements of REBT for such people is unconditional acceptance, where I would, or a practitioner in REBT would encourage the person with whatever that psychosis was to work on accepting themselves as an equally worthwhile human being as anyone else who doesn't have the psychosis. Because many people with such a condition can tend to feel inferior or debilitated. In some ways they are debilitated, but less worthwhile. And so REBT is great in helping people to work on establishing the habitual knowing that, yes, even if I, for example, have this condition, especially when I'm not on my medication, I'm no inferior, I'm no less worthwhile. I'm a human being with this disability, just like someone with diabetes. It's a biochemical thing. They're not inferior. They just have a limiting condition. Some of the time, all of us are worthy of unconditional acceptance in this gift of being human, despite and including some really tough challenges at times.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Debbie Jaffe Ellis. And over to our chair, Dr. Krishna Girish, our founder chairman, for a few words.
Yeah, in fact, today we had a very wonderful session. I would